And good morning, everybody. It's a Wednesday edition of the Bullpen with Adam the Bull. It is September 21st, 2022, and I am starting this podcast recording at 8:48 in the morning. Yeah, a little later than I normally do because I had to stay up really late watching that Guardians game, as did many of you. And then I had a hard time going to sleep, and then I slept late, and, look at my eyes. Got bags under my eyes. I'm a mess, but I'm ready to go. And, let me tell you something. We are conditioned here in Cleveland to think, oh, my God, I can't do a show about the Guardians 2 days in a row. Yesterday, I focused my podcast on the Guardians, and a lot of people watched and listened. And, the numbers tell us in general on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show and in general in radio in this town that when people talk about the Guardians or even the Cavs instead of the Browns, that you go away. But I don't believe it. I mean, the numbers are what they are. Yes, more people are interested in the Browns and the Guardians. I'm not debating that. But I think as a sports community, as a sports media community, I believe we've chased a lot of the Guardians fans away because we haven't talked about them as much. And there's not that many people in this town that can have an educated conversation, not that many media members, in my opinion, in this town that can have an educated conversation about the Guardians and about baseball in general. I think that's a problem, and I think that's why when we do talk about them, maybe we don't have as many people paying attention because I think some of those people have been chased away, and maybe you're, I don't know, watching MLB Network or listening to MLB Radio or one of those rare places that you can actually hear some baseball talk. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know, but I'm going to encourage you to continue to listen to this podcast, watch this podcast, because even on days where we're talking primarily football, which I do hear plenty, and even on days like today where we're going to spend most of our show on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show talking about the Browns, we will talk about the Guardians a little in the beginning of the show and a little at the end of the show. But yesterday I did the majority of the podcast on the Guardians, and my natural reaction was, that I should probably do a mostly Brown show today because that's just how I'm conditioned and how we've all been conditioned here in Cleveland. But I love baseball, and I think I can encourage more people to love baseball. So on my podcast, I'm doing what I want to talk about, okay? I'm not going to do it for clicks. The reality is when I do a podcast, when the headline of my podcast is about the Browns, then more people watch it. That's just the way it is. But I hope that over time that will change because there was good reaction to yesterday's podcast when I, talked about my headline was All Hail the Guardians. I want people to watch. I want people to listen. But most importantly, I want to have fun and I want to talk about what I think is most relevant. And on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, when the Guardians, especially today, when the Guardians played a wild game against the White Sox last night in the biggest regular season series they've had this year, yeah, I think that's the most important topic. I will spend some time on the Browns later and the Joe Haden thing and, announcing that he's coming back. No, well, not coming back, but coming back for 1 day to retire. I'll get to it. That's fine. There's plenty of Browns talk to be had by me and everybody else. But for those of you who love the Guardians, stick with me. I'm going to talk plenty about it. We'll be doing some live shows. Maybe when they clinch, maybe, I'm not sure, but certainly in the playoffs, which I expect them to be in. So that's all coming up, plus a milestone in baseball as well. I'm going to hit on that too. That's all right here in the Bullpen with Adam the Bull.
Podcast is not for the faint of heart.
And I do think it's time for the Browns to move on.
It's not for those who ride the fence.
He's proven nothing.
But if you're looking for someone who tells it like it is about Cleveland sports,
everybody does fandom their way.
You've come to the right place.
I don't think he's any good.
It's time for the Bullpen with Adam the Bull.
Yes, indeed. It is me. I am back. It is time for the Bullpen, and I got a lot to get to. As I was talking about, we're going to start with the Guardians. What a game. Hopefully, many of you stayed up late, very late last night to watch it. Game started, about 40 minutes late due to the rain, and then they went into extra innings. It was not pretty at times, but this Guardians team continues to show a toughness, a grit, a fight, an attention to detail, a hustle, a killer instinct, whatever it is. They have the intangibles that the Browns have not consistently showed you. Guardians jumped on the Whites. And first of all, you may remember on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show yesterday, I said, and this is not that I'm breaking new ground here, this is pretty obvious, that the pressure was all on the White Sox heading into this series. There was no doubt about it because They went into the series knowing that they probably had to sweep to make the playoffs. And they had a huge advantage last night in the starting pitching matchup. Dylan Cease has been fantastic all season long. He is, along with Shane McClanahan and I feel like I'm saying his name wrong. I can't ever think of how to pronounce it. And Justin Verlander, they're the top three candidates for the Cy Young. And so, and Aaron Savali was coming off the injured list. He'd been terrible this year. Everything pointed to the White Sox getting it done. And you could tell early that even though the Guardians didn't score in the first inning, they threatened, they blew an opportunity. Kwan and Rosario got on base. In fact, it was first, second, nobody out, and I believe the count was 3-1 to Jose in the first inning, and then the Guardians blew it. And that was disappointing. However, it seemed obvious to me that Dylan Cease was a little tight. I thought he was tight. I thought he was pressing a little bit early. He didn't have great command. Second inning, it got worse. Guardians scored a run. He ended up walking 3. Now he settled down after the second inning, and he did pitch, pretty well the 4 innings to follow, but it was already too late because the Guardians had run up his pitch count, and they had the lead. Now he comes out after the top of the 6th. Somebody asked me on Twitter, Savali had pitched great for 5 innings. He had pitched really well, much better than we could have possibly expected in this game. And I got a tweet from someone asking, okay, should Savali come out for the 6th? And my answer was no. Now, who knows what would have happened in the inning? I'm not saying it might have gone even worse. We don't know. Savali gives and it wasn't like he got crushed to start the 6th. It's an infield single for Elvis Andrus, and then he walks Moncada, and then Tito goes out and gets Sandlin. To me, I'm up 1-0. I got 5 good innings out of Savali. I got a great bullpen. It's fresh and rested, especially my key guys. Not anymore, but they were going into last night. And I would have gone and got Savali at the end of the 5th. Now, he didn't. So, okay. And the Sandlin comes in, immediately hits Abreu with a pitch. Not good. Bases loaded. Eloy Jimenez singles. It's 1-1. It's looking awful at that point. He gets Vaughn to strike out and then gets a ground ball that could have been a double play. It turns into an RB, 2 runs on 1 run would have scored because they didn't turn the double play, and then the ball got thrown away by Rosario, and so they get a second run. And you're thinking, okay, well, you're now down 3-1. The bat's not cooking today. But here's the key thing. Even though they're down 3-1 going to the 7th, you had gotten Dylan Cease out of the game because of how you work the counts. The Guardians are so good at working the count, most of their hitters. They're one of the best teams at it in the league. When I say work the count, those guys, you grind out at bats. Sometimes you make it out, but you may have a 7, 8, 9, even 10 pitch or more at bat, and that's a good at bat. Because when you're talking about a White Sox bullpen that is not nearly as good as the Guardians bullpen, that's when you could take advantage. So the Guardians had 3 innings and 3 opportunities to to come back here, and that's exactly what they did. We go, well, by the way, I want to go back here because there was some debate about this last night. In the 6th inning, you may remember Elvis Andrus stole second base, and Ahmed Rosario was adamant on the field. He was kind of jumping up and down that he had made the tag and that he was out. And clearly, watching the replay, he did not make the tag, or at least, there was clearly no angle that showed he did make the tag. And Francona challenged. I thought it was a bad challenge. Listen, I just spent my final take on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show yesterday talking about how we are lucky that Terry Francona is a baseball icon and we are lucky to have him, and I totally believe that. Doesn't mean you can't be critical. That's part of the game. Hey, Francona's not always going to get it right. I certainly don't get it right. Francona gets it right more than most guys. I thought he made a couple of mistakes yesterday. This was it. I was talking with Jay. We were texting off the air. He kind of thought it was more on Rosario because he was adamant, and the manager's, going to give the player the benefit of the doubt. I thought that they made a mistake challenging that play. I didn't like using her last challenge in that situation. And it did cost them, but ultimately it didn't cost them the game because we know what happened. So in the 7th, it was a crazy inning. They get a huge break, right? The White Sox go to the pen. Jimmy Lambert comes in, immediately walks the first two batters. Then Straw lines out. On the broadcast, the TV broadcast, they were talking about bunting with Straw. Listen, for most of the year, I could understand that maybe, but in this situation, there was no way I'd bunt with Straw. And in this case, Francona, who does bunt in these situations sometimes, one of the few things that drive me crazy, Francona did not have Miles Straw bunting here. I thought it was the right call. Did it work? It kind of worked out, right? He got one runner over the third. You never know how. Just because you can't judge the decision based on the result. I mean, some people do. I guess you can. I don't. I think it was the smart call. I think when you're down 2 runs late in the game, and again, Miles Straw, who I've been very critical of, has played well of late. He's been hot in September, so let's go. And he hit the ball right on the button. So they get the runner over to third. Okay, first and third. Quan comes through, had a big night at 4 hits. He gets the base hit. Owen Miller scores, so now it's 3-2. And you got first and second. And then Will Benson went in to run for Austin Hedges. Benson and Hedges. Wasn't that a brand of cigarettes back in the day? Rosario grounds out. The runners advance, second and third. So it's second and third, 2 outs. And Jose comes through, squirts one right between short and third. The shortstop, who's the shortstop for the White Sox? Why can't I think of who it was? Oh, it was Andrews, right? Yeah, Andrews. Great play. The White Sox, who are a terrible defensive team, made some great plays. Josh Harrison robbed Ahmed Rosario in his first 2 at-bats on an infield grounder and a line drive, well, more like a pop-up to short right field. 2 great plays. And then in this instance, Andrews made a great play to get to the ball, but couldn't throw out Ramirez at first. So Benson scores. It's 3-3. So the Guardians have a chance now to take the lead. Tie game, top of the 7th. Naylor, it's a single to left field. Naylor's been clutch. He's been great. Ahmed Rosario streaking to the plate. He is safe at home. The ump calls him out, but because they wasted that challenge and it's not the 8th inning yet, they don't overturn the call. How the ump missed this call, it was so clear that Rosario was safe. At the time, I was going bananas because it could have easily cost them the game. Fortunately, it did not. Again, I'm not going to harp on the challenge. I thought it was bad, but I'm not going to harp on it. I think the rule is stupid. I've said this for a long time. I've said this with football. There should not be challenges. Challenges are dumb. The NFL and Major League Baseball should do it the same. We shouldn't send it to New York. We shouldn't have officials walking off the field. We should have a replay official in the booth in the NFL. The NFL and Major League Baseball have tons of money. They can afford to have an extra official or 2 officials or 3 officials. I don't care. Have them in the booth at each stadium watching each play. And on any close play, they get 30 seconds to potentially change the call. That's it. No minute, no 2 minutes, no 4 minutes. If you can't figure out the right call in 30 seconds, replay to me was made to get the obvious call correct. And we got it wrong in baseball. We get it wrong in football. It's absurd. It's not meant to break down frame by frame to see if a fingernail touched a base. It's not meant to be frame by frame to see if a guy took that full second step for a catch being a catch. That's stupid. We've ruined it. And we don't even use it to get the obvious calls right in both sports. That's what it should be for. 30 seconds, clear. That Ahmed Rosario was clearly safe at home. It would have taken 10 seconds for a guy in the booth. It would have taken 3 seconds for a guy in the booth. Change it. Let's go. None of these stupid challenges. The one with Rosario, no way you could tell. 30-second clock, over, gone. Move it on. Games would move. You'd have more looks, but the game would move quicker, and you'd get it right. Much higher percentage of the time. But I digress. Anyway, it's 3-3. I'm ticked. Everybody's ticked. I'm screaming. We're all yelling, blah, blah, blah. Go to the bottom of the 7th. White Sox get a 2-out double. Not enough. We go to the 8th. Guardians go in order, blah, blah, blah. Bottom of the 8th, Karinchak comes on. He's a lunatic, but he pitched a great inning. Nice job. Guardians in the 9th, they do nothing. Go 1-2-3 against Liam Hendricks. Bottom of the 9th, Enyel De Los Santos, who Tito's trusting more and more. Big guys, pitched really well for them for the most part. Great 9th inning. 1-2-3. Okay, we go to the 10th. Runner on second. We get it. Rosario hits a fly ball down the right field line. Right fielder makes the catch. Quan gets the third. It was a good throw, but Quan got in there. They intentionally walk Jose. Smart play, but the Guardians made it. Was the right call. It didn't work for the White Sox, but it was the right call because Jose's, Naylor's a good player, but Jose's your best player. So I'm not messing with Jose in that situation. Smart play. Naylor comes up, first and third, one out, gets a base hit. Kwan scores. And one of the keys here, and again, it didn't. In the end, they had to go more innings to win. But again, something you don't really see in the box score, if you weren't watching this game in the 10th inning, something you don't see is that Jose, like Naylor gets the single up the middle, and a lot of players would have just stopped at second base. Okay? Jose busted it, and he ran all the way to third on that play, and that was huge because the next batter, Oscar Gonzalez, hits a sacrifice fly. That if Ramirez hadn't gotten the third on that play, the Guardians don't score another run. Now, maybe who knows what would have happened because Emmanuel Clase might have had a different mindset. You never know. But in theory, the Guardians would have lost in the bottom of the 10th had Jose not hustled to third on that play. It was huge. He gets to third, sac fly 5-3. Unfortunately, one of the few bits of bad news in this game, Emmanuel Clase didn't get the job done. With the runner in the bottom of the 10th, Gavin Sheets on an infield single, nothing you could do there. Fielder's choice. Then he strikes out Moncada, and you think, okay, he's getting out of this, right? They scored. Zavala scored on the fielder's choice because he was the ghost runner, went to third on the infield single, scored the fielder's choice. Okay, then you strike out, but Andrews stole second during that at bat, and so he's in scoring position. And unfortunately, Clase had 2 strikes on Abreu. Now, you could have walked Abreu there. Much like the Jose situation, but Abreu's not Ramirez, and Eloy Jimenez, who was up next, has been hot. And you're not worried about a 4 situation because there's 2 outs. I don't have a problem with Tito pitching to Abreu, but Clase hung one, and Abreu came through, clutch guy, lined it into center field, base hit, tie game. They get Jimenez. That's the end of it. Then in the 11th inning, Jake Diekman comes on. He was a disaster. Throws a wild pitch. He, gets the runner to third to start the inning, right? And then a walk, an out. Owen Miller steals second. So it's second and third, 1 out. Miles Straw, who we talked about before earlier in the game, don't bunt with him in the 7th. He's been hot, came through. And I tweeted right before, because I've been hard on Straw, and he has not had a good season, but he's played well. I give him credit. He's played well down the stretch. But I tweeted right before Straw came to the plate, come on, Straw, get a hit here. I believe in you. And he made me look like a prophet. He came through. He rips a double to left, I think it was. Jimenez and Miller score. Guardians up 7-5. And then Stephen Kwan mentioned he's having a monster night. What do you go, 4 for 6, I think, in the game? Gets a base hit. Straw scores. Rosario gets a base hit. Ramirez, and Kwan stole third. Ramirez, and just hustle on the bases. Ramirez with the sac fly. Then another wild pitch. It felt like the White Sox quit. The fact that they let Diekman pitch that whole inning, and he gave up 5 runs. And then I had a feeling Tito. I would have got the Eli Morgan in the bottom of the 11th, but Tito, as predictably, went to Shaw. And with 1 out, Shaw gives up the home run to A.J. Pollock. Makes it 10-7. Then with 2 outs, Zavala, who had a good game for them, gets a double, and you're starting to get a little nervous. Tying run on deck. But he gets Garcia to pop up, and that's it. So wild game. The Guardians win at 10-7. The magic number down to 9. There's some confusion about whether it's 10 or 9, because technically 9 leaves them tied, but the Guardians now have the tiebreaker against the White Sox. Maybe there's some weird scenario if all 3 teams tie, but I just don't see how that's possible. So I believe 9's the magic number, and I don't think it matters. I think the White Sox had to sweep their series, and obviously they can't do that now, and they had their biggest pitching advantage. Now they're going to get even tighter, and now it switches. Tonight it's Lance Lynn against McKenzie. You could argue I think it's pretty even right now. Lynn has pitched really well down the stretch, and he's a veteran, so maybe give him and he's at home, so maybe give him a little edge. I don't think he'll be as tight as Dylan Cease has not pitched in a lot of big moments. Lance Lynn has, so I don't think he's going to be kind of tight like I thought Cease was. So I do think, the more I think about it, probably a little bit of an edge for the White Sox tonight in the pitching matchup, but not by much. Last night they had a huge edge, and they didn't get it done. So, and then tomorrow the Guardians have a big edge. Even though Cueto's been pretty good for the White Sox, he's certainly no scrub. But But I'll take Shane Bieber right now over almost anybody. You know, I mean, he's been in big spots. And the Guardians have 81 wins. They need to go 9-5 in their final 14 games to win 90 games. They win 90 games, they win the division. I mean, honestly, at this point, the White Sox, you probably win 8. Guardians probably only need 4 or 5 more wins to win to lock up the division. But they'll win more than that because, again, after these 2 games with the White Sox, they go to Texas, they stink, and then they come home, play a good Tampa team, but 6 against Kansas City. I mean, it's looking great, folks. It's looking great. I know in Cleveland we always get nervous and wait for the other shoe to drop, but 5-game lead, 14 to go. Looking pretty sweet, looking pretty good. I think the Guardians are in great shape. Oh, I just kicked my dog in the head. You can't see him, but he's laying. He's scared from, it was raining this morning. He's scared from all the rain, and he's laying under my feet, under my chair. Sorry, Crashy. Didn't mean to kick you in the head, buddy. How you doing, pal? All right, I got to take a break. When I come back, I got a couple of quick thoughts on, well, I do want to talk one other baseball thing, and I will get to the Browns as well. Hope you enjoyed the Guardians breakdown. This is a good time. It's a great time. We can pay attention to, it's okay to talk about both teams. I'm loving life with the Guardians right now. I am all in, baby. Let's go. Quick break coming up. First, let me talk to you about Sleeper, fastest growing fantasy platform today. Over-unders integrated into fantasy, one of their new features. It's awesome. It's the first sports contest game built into the fantasy experience. Not only can you enter a contest via over-under itself, but you can also do so through your Fantasy League's matchup screen, and it's really easy. Choose the sport, choose the over-under, rushing yards in football, points in basketball. Choose the amount of money you want to enter. You can win anywhere from 2 to 20 times the amount you put in. I love over-under on Sleeper. It's fun. You can do it with your friends, contest in your fantasy, group chat, talk trash, do all that. So what are you waiting for? Download Sleeper now, play their over-under game, have fun with your friends, bust their chops, and make some cash. On your mobile phone, join our listener group now at sleeper.com/lockedonbets or sleeper.com/lockedontoday, and they'll automatically match your first deposit up to $100. Again, go to sleeper.com/lockedonbets and sleeper.com/lockedontoday. You get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. All right, a couple other quickies here. I know everybody hates the Yankees. I'm in that group. But kudos to Aaron Judge. And I've made the case for Shohei Ohtani winning the MVP. I have no desire to go through that again and argue with people with that. I understand why people think Aaron Judge win the MVP. I think he'll actually win it. I think there's a sentiment that if we vote for Ohtani this year, he's going to win every year, so we can't do that. So it is what it is. I'm not going to argue that point anymore. Aaron Judge deserves credit. He becomes the first player since Roger Maris to hit 60 home runs that we don't suspect is taking steroids. Now, maybe you do. I don't. Who knows? The testing's better now. They're on top of it now. You never know. The drug makers are always ahead of the drug testers. But so anything's possible. But I don't even really want to say that. I shouldn't have even said that because I think I have no suspicions whatsoever about Aaron Judge. He's a very likable guy, despite being a Yankee. I actually hope he leaves the Yankees. He's a free agent at the end of the year. Man, he is going to get a ton of money. Oh, my God. I know it's never going to happen, but how amazing would it be to have Aaron Judge? Wouldn't it be crazy if the Guardians just said, we're breaking the bank for Aaron Judge. Let's put him in the middle of our lineup. We're going to raise the payroll, be $200 million every year, and let's get Aaron Judge. How good would this Guardians team be? But anyway, not going to happen. Pipe dream, funny. But kudos to him, man. Did 60 home runs, and he's still got 2 weeks left in the season. I know he plays in a great home run park, and you could, hate on the Yankees, as I do. I've been hating on the Yankees for 51 years. You could poo-poo the ballpark, whatever you want to do. Not many guys have hit 60 home runs, even if we include the steroid guys. There's not many more. Hitting 60 home runs, to me, is still a magnificent accomplishment. The fact that nobody else in baseball has more than 40, Kyle Schwarber hit his 40th for the Phillies yesterday, or 2 days ago, whatever it was. I mean, that's amazing. He's having a remarkable season, and he's winning the Triple Crown right now. For a guy to have that much power and lead the league in batting average as well, pretty freaking remarkable. It really is. So kudos to Aaron Judge. He's a magnificent ball player. He stayed completely healthy this year, and who knows? Maybe he'll hit 60. I mean, it's unlikely. 70. Maybe he'll hit 70. I'm rooting for him. I am. As much as I hate the Yankees, and I won't be rooting for them in the playoffs, certainly if they play the Guardians, I won't. I mean, I won't be rooting for them against anybody. But it is a great, cool story, and he deserves a lot of kudos and respect. All right. Before I get to the Browns game itself, I want to talk about the news I saw this morning. Joe Haden coming back to Cleveland. He's going to sign a one-day contract and retire as a Brown. I generally I shouldn't say I hate those things. I think they're silly, but I like it in this case. Joe Haden was a great Cleveland Brown. He played great. He represented the city great. He had great enthusiasm. Every time I got a chance to interview him, it was a pleasure. And one of the worst things, the Browns, in those years, did a lot of stupid things, and have still done a lot of stupid things. One of the dumbest moves they ever made was cutting Joe Haden. There was no reason for that. I saw Zach Jackson tweeting earlier this morning that it was the one thing that Hugh Jackson was right about. He didn't want to cut Joe Haden. That was awful. We all hated it at the time. The more Joe Haden had many good years left, and then he ended up on the Steelers, which I don't blame him, but that sucks. It sucked for us, and Joe was such a great Brown. He was such a great representative of the city. We saw him at games all the time, the Cavs, the Indians. And it's a shame that he ended up with the Steelers, but let's embrace him back. I'm excited that he signed the one-day contract, even though, as I said, these things are usually stupid to me. But I like it. I think it's kind of meaningful because it means like Joe feels good about the Browns, and maybe he'll be a guy that looks back fondly, and we look back, and maybe he's part of the Browns media. Who knows? I hope he does, because Joe's a great personality and was a great draft pick by the Browns, one of the few in those years, and it's a shame they let him go. It's really stupid. Really, really dumb. One more quick break, and then a little look ahead to tomorrow's Thursday night football matchup between the Browns and the Steelers. Thursday night football. That's next. Let's keep it simple, okay? The Browns better go there. Not go there. Well, go there. I'm calling it Brown Stadium. I refuse to call it by that disgusting name. They better go to the stadium, and they better kick the Steelers' ass tomorrow. Okay, I don't want to hear nothing else. They choked like dogs against the Jets. It was a shameful performance. Very disappointed in comments by Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward. But I'm over it because I love Denzel and I love Myles Garrett. They're two of my favorite players. They're both very likable people. And I think they just, heat of the moment, heat of the 24 hours, I'm going to give them a pass, okay? I'm over it. And I think both of those guys, I hope both of those guys can go out and play great. Now, I am nervous about this Myles Garrett situation. Kevin Stefanski was very shady when asked about him because he missed some time in practice this week. We don't know what's going on. I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know what's happening. Maybe that's why Myles Garrett was, I'm sure he's hurt. That's what's happening. But maybe that's why Myles Garrett was so, angry after the game. Maybe that's why he took it on the fans. Maybe he was playing injured. I don't know. But as I've said a million times, especially with Baker, I don't make excuses for injuries. If you're on the field, you're expected to perform. If you can't perform to your best of your abilities, then get off the field. No excuses for injuries. But I think Myles Garrett in the end will play. I hope he will play because I think he could have a really big game. And I think Denzel, you want to shut people up like me and others that said, yeah, you blew it because you did. Well, shut us up and shut them down. Don't do your talking at Twitter. Don't do your talking, do your talking on the field. And that's what Denzel Ward and these guys need to do. And it's all about the defense. The offense has done enough. Certainly against the Jets, the offense did more than you could have expected, especially the passing game. But this defense needs to close games out. And what's happened both of the last 2 weeks from the defense has been embarrassing and unacceptable. And they better clean it up soon because if they don't, they're going to be out of it by the time Deshaun Watson comes back. All right, a lot more on the Browns tomorrow. And, of course, we will talk about the Guardians again. Another big game against the White Sox tonight. Let's go. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Where else but right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull. See ya.